Hi guys, I'm back in Los Angeles now and it's Valentine's Day, or just past Valentine's Day, and I think what better excuse than Valentine's Day for a book haul. So as some of you might remember, if you watched my video with Amy a couple videos back, which by the way, it makes me so happy to go back and read all the comments from that video. I've mentioned it before, but it just makes me so happy that we started that discussion, and we shall be making a video together again soon. But at the end of that video, I mentioned that at the end of this month, I'm traveling to Boston to go and speak at NerdCon Nerdfighteria about the internet and presentation of the self on the internet, and from a personal perspective, the presentation of my disability on the internet and the power that the internet has given me in my conversation about disability. Anyway, all that to be said, during NerdCon Nerdfighteria, a lot of exciting things are happening. It's a nerdy, internety conference, and there's a lot of book stuff that's happening. And one of the things is a book club, which is being led by Rosianna, who I will link somewhere here and also below. She's at Paper Time Lady on Twitter. She has one of the best Twitter feeds that I follow, and I really, really love her content. And for book club, we are going to be reading a book called Your Heart is a Muscle the Size of a Fist by, I'm a bad booktuber, Sunil Yapa. So anyway, this book haul is basically because of that, because I went into a bookshop just with the sole purpose of picking up this book so I could read it before the end of the month, ready for book club. And if you know me by now, you guys know that I can't walk into a bookshop and buy one book. And so I might have bought a few too many books, but you guys get content out of it, so that's a good thing. So we'll start with the one I just mentioned, which we're reading for book club, Your Heart is a Muscle the Size of a Fist, purely because I've started reading it already, so I should probably mention it first. Just one really materialistic thing. I don't really like the cover. I checked and it is literally a stock image from Getty Images, which seems a little bit low budget and weird. The actual cover that's like on Goodreads is so much prettier. But anyway, that is irrelevant when it comes to the actual book, because I'm about 100 pages in and I think it's got about 300 in total, and I am really loving it. It basically tells of the events of the WTO protest in 1999 in Seattle from a lot of different perspectives of some of the protesters that were there, and also some of the police that were there patrolling the event. And if you don't know about the WTO protests in Seattle, they kind of degenerated into a lot of violence, which they were hoping wouldn't occur because the protesters' intention at the beginning was to stay non-violent, and it basically took over the city for a few days. And this is kind of a fictionalization of those few days, all condensed into, I think, what's supposed to be 1 or 2 days. And like I said, it's multi-perspective, and it seems as of now to be very stream of consciousness writing, which I'm really enjoying. I'll speak more about stream of consciousness writing in another video or two, because my reading in January and February seems to have been a little bit accidentally sponsored by stream of consciousness writing. So I have a lot of feelings about that, and I am a big fan thus far. It is a debut novel, which I always find fun, and I'm excited for what this author has in store, because for now it's a really, I think it's a really arresting book, pardon the pun, because a lot of people get arrested, I think, in these protests, but it is a really arresting book, and it makes you stop and think about humanness in protest and the importance of raising your voice against injustice and the strong things that you believe in. And that is particularly relevant, I think, in the climate that we are currently living through. We have seen the impact of protests and loud voices already to beat some things, cough, Muslim ban, uncough. I think even though this tells of a completely different time period and of a protest that's already happened, it's kind of putting the fire in my belly to remind me that my voice is actually a useful tool, and no matter how futile it might seem to shout and scream about things that you find unjust, it actually isn't necessarily. So I think from that point of view, it's going to be a pretty important book. I wanted to say a thing. One of the interesting things about it too thus far is that one of our main characters, Victor, is biracial, and so is the author. I believe he's from Sri Lanka. So there is an interesting conversation underlying a lot of the book that I've read thus far about what it is to be biracial, not black enough, not white enough, and how that fits in with race relations in America in 1999 and probably now, to be honest, because I don't think much has changed. And I think any conversation that uplifts the role and importance of race and doesn't erase that is an important one to have. So I will report back at some point. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a full wrap up this month or whether we'll just vlog book club or whatever, but I will report back somehow. Next, we have a book I'm really excited about called The Animators by Kayla Whitaker. Now, I believe this is quite a new book which hasn't been published in the UK yet, and I know that some of my UK viewers are quite excited when I talk about American releases because they can then look forward to their release in the UK, and I personally am looking forward to this book. I've seen it recommended in a couple of places that I respect, and I guess it talks about animation as a creative field, which remains quite male dominated. Most of Hollywood and film related creative endeavors remain quite male dominated. And our two main characters are two women working in this field and kind of navigating their professional lives in this male dominated industry. And the book, as far as I know, follows them at the release of their first major animated feature, which they've worked on together, which chronicles one of their lives in animation. And I gather that the success of this film, whilst being very exciting to them, also affects their friendship in slightly more negative ways and kind of reveals some cracks which might have existed before. So yeah, I'm really interested in this book on so many levels. One, because anything that has strong-willed, developed female characters is of interest to me, so I hope that that's what I'm going to get from this book. And also two, because I am obviously doing creative things surrounded by a lot of men, so I'm interested in any discussion about that. And three, because the documentary that I'm working on is actually going to feature some animation. So I doubt I'm going to learn much about animation because this is a fiction book and I don't think it would behoove it to go into much detail about animation. But I am interested in what my endeavours might bring and how easy it's going to be to incorporate animation into my own film. So yeah, I'm excited. I've heard, I think, 2 or 3 people talk about it, so it doesn't seem to be very widely discussed yet. So I look forward to bringing you my review and thoughts. The next hardback we have to haul is a Jodi Picoult called Small Great Things. I am shamefully, maybe, I don't know, really excited about this. I have been a Jodi Picoult fan for a really long time. I know that some people kind of think she's a bit trashy, but I don't know, I've always really enjoyed her work. I think she's great at courtroom dramas. I'm always really enjoyed, you know, the lawyer thing in a fictionalized sense. And I just think she's really good at what she does. I suppose things can get a little bit formulaic when you tend to write novels that always talk about similar things, but I have left large enough gaps between my readings of her work to not really be bothered by that. And if you haven't read a Jodi Picoult before and you kind of need something that's a bit of a page turner, I mean, I think she still writes in quite a literary fashion and I appreciate her talent. But yeah, if you're interested in courtroom dramas or or just something that's going to hold your attention, I guess, and be a really good story, because I think that's one of the things that I would say about her, is that she's a great storyteller and sort of unpretentious in her craft. But anyway, I haven't read a Jodi Picoult in a while, and this one is a new release. And it tells the story of a labour and delivery nurse named Ruth Jefferson, who is a black woman who gets put in charge of a baby after its birth. And right after its birth, the baby goes into cardiac distress. Ruth begins performing CPR, and it comes to light that the baby's parents are white and white supremacists, and so Ruth ends up getting charged with a serious crime because they do not want this nurse looking after their baby, and they're very disturbed by the fact that she performed CPR to try and save the baby's life. So again, another timely book, I guess. I'm not making any thinly veiled point about the rise of white supremacy around the world, but take from that what you will, I guess. I am excited to just read something that's a little bit familiar to me. Not that I think that she's written any stories that are similar to this, but just her way of writing is something that's very familiar to me. I've been reading her work since I was a teenager, and it's fun to kind of know what you're expecting. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to just being taken away by the intrigue, and I will be sure to report back. And if anyone feels that they might be interested in her work, I would be happy to provide recommendations of where to start. There are some really, really fun ones and good ones. Next, we have 2 non-fiction books, which I haven't been reading much non-fiction recently other than the Lauren Graham book I reviewed here, and so I'm really looking forward to getting back into non-fiction. Looks like this book haul is sponsored by Really Excited and Really Looking Forward, just like the last book haul was. Do older viewers, I say older viewers, it was like 3 months ago, but do you remember my super excited soda? Maybe we need to put that advert back in. The first non-fiction is called Smoke Gets in Your Eyes and Other Lessons from the Crematory by Doughty. Now, I don't know, maybe you've gotten into the weird corner of YouTube, like me. If you're as obsessed with YouTube as I am, you've probably gotten into the weird corner of YouTube. And no, I'm not talking about ASMR, or I'm not talking about Dr. Pimple Popper, which is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life, but people love her. But I am talking about Doughty, the author of this book, who has a YouTube channel, which is described on the back of this book as a web series, which is really funny. That was probably written by the same guy who writes all the articles moaning millennials in The Guardian. But she does have a YouTube channel where she basically talks about death, and she talks about her personal stories to do with cremating people and burying people and dealing with people after death. And she's actually given a TED talk too about it, which is really interesting and which I really enjoyed, which I will definitely link below so you can watch. It's kind of weird and morbid, I guess, to make a career out of dealing with death and talking about death, but I've always been weirdly fascinated by the modern refusal to accept death and to accept the fact that we're all going to end up dead, and so we're better off having open conversations about what we want after and what happens after. And I'm not talking about heaven or the afterlife or whatever, but I'm talking about just trying to take some of that fear and mystery out of death. And I think she does that really well, at least from what I've seen of her, and she's really funny. One of the reviews on the front of this book says morbidly funny, which is just amusing to me. But yeah, I have no idea about this book. My roommate got it for me for Christmas because now everyone is getting me books, which is super exciting, but I've got too many and people are just feeding my addiction, which I'm not complaining, but it's becoming a problem because I'm running out of space. But I guess it's just her reflections on what she's learnt through her career as a mortician, and just an openness about normalizing death and taking the fear out of it. So that's really exciting and different and not something I would have ordinarily picked up. So thanks, Rumi. I appreciate it. The second non-fiction book is one I've been meaning to pick up for absolutely ages. I have a screenshot of a tweet. My friend Jen, not Jen Campbell, tweeted that she had bought this book and absolutely loved it. I've had the screenshot sitting on my phone for like 6 months and I haven't picked up the book. But when I was at the bookshop the other day, I finally saw it on the shelf and picked it up. And that is Aziz Ansari's Modern Romance, which, holy heck, you guys, I am so excited for so many reasons. So Aziz Ansari you might know of as a comedian, all-round great actor and funny person. He's also in Parks and Rec and Master of None. And then he goes and writes this book, which I gather is just a massive sociological and psychological study that he undertook with some professionals in the field, basically finding out about where we're at in modern times with romance, what it means to find love online and on the dating apps, and basically how courting and relationships have changed as a result of technology and the online world. And you guys, just take a look inside this book and you'll understand why I'm so excited to read it. It appeals to me on so many levels. The psychology geek that lives inside of me is so excited at this massive long form study basically that he's undertaken, which is apparently super accessible to read, which always excites me. Some proper science that is likely to have a big impact and likely to be read by a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily pick up science non-fiction books really excites me. And yes, before we get into this debate, psychology is a science. I studied it for 4 years. I very much believe in that point. And also, I gather that he has a really warm and engaging and fun way of writing, which is bound to hold my attention, I guess. Also, if you watch my 22 facts about me video, last video, you will know that I also found love online, and I have a lot of feelings about how we navigated that and what it meant for our relationship, namely the fact that we didn't get to touch or have any kind of physical connection for a really long time, which forced us to conduct our relationship, I guess, through Skype and Facebook Messenger and things like that, which I felt was a blessing because it meant that we got to know each other's minds and hearts before we got to know each other's bodies. And my husband is thumbing down behind the camera, but yeah, not that, you know, anything opposite would be bad, but I appreciated that way of starting our relationship, and I felt like it was nice to fall in love before we were physically together, I guess. So there you go. I think it was really a book made for me in a lot of senses, and I did some research before I bought it, and a lot of people I respect have great views on it. So I'm excited. Non-fiction, internet, romance, yes please. I feel like I've been slacking a little bit, guys. Although I've had some alcohol pop in and out of my videos recently, I don't think we've been having a proper conversation about it, which the first video I ever made on this channel, one of the most popular bits of it was that you guys got to watch my husband make me this cocktail. And so I feel like it's time to bring back the cocktail in earnest and give it its proper place in the video. You know, you gotta leave some space for it. So today we are drinking, I am proud to announce, because it's the greatest thing, a cocktail of 2 cities. Which is just like, have you ever heard anything so amazing? A cocktail of 2 cities. And this is all thanks to my best friend Charlotte, who may be watching in London now. And for Christmas, she got me a cocktail recipe book called Tequila Mockingbird. I hate puns. I hate puns. Puns cause me a great deal of distress because I laugh and I know they're not funny and I laugh anyway. But this book is basically what it says on the tin, and it's a whole bunch of cocktails named after famous books, classic books, important books in a punny and annoying and frustrating way. And you can tell that she takes great care in watching my videos because she knew that that would be the perfect gift. So I'm pleased to announce that from this day forward, most of the cocktails that I make on video will have very annoying, very hilarious, amusing, great, punny names, thanks to my best friend Charlotte. So thank you, my love. I appreciate that. But today, this is it. Cocktail of Two Cities, which, by the way, if you haven't read Tale of Two Cities, it's a great Dickens. I recommend it. It's not my favourite, but maybe we'll do a video talking about Dickens. Or maybe we won't. I've mainly talked about modern authors. I think I'll stick to that. But this has, what does it have again? Prosecco, lemon juice, gin and sugar. So it's pretty alcoholic. And I tried this before we turned on the camera, and my reaction was basically, if my Prosecco was better quality, it would be a good cocktail. I mean, I think I'd like it if it was better Prosecco. It's nice. Prosecco is just not that good.
It's supposed to be like brewed champagne, which would be, I think, good.
Brewed? Oh, brut. I didn't understand. I literally didn't understand what you said. I wasn't just being obnoxious. I really wasn't. I truly didn't understand what you said. So basically, if you have Prosecco that you are enjoying and that is nice tasting, then go ahead and make this cocktail because it's really worth it and it looks cool and golden and neat.
It's supposed to be champagne.
Oh, it's supposed to be champagne, but what millennial has the money to like buy champagne on the regular?